Hello cubies and newbies, I am Sunshine and I am the creator of the ABCube method for solving Rubik's type puzzles. This is the ABCube method and I am the ABCube tutor. So it's Wednesday, and Wednesday at any time I will, and I love to chat more than I love to monologue, so join me in chat, ask me questions. I can teach you about my method, which I know it's not built for speed and it's crazy with regrips, but it breaks it down to just fundamentals. It's really super easy to teach and to learn compared to memorizing algorithms and carrying around a this is some of the cheat sheet right there. I am working on making a poster and an actual cheat sheet that will work through order of operations and what each thing does and how each one works. I think we know on the thing, but today's Wednesday, so hi. To Wednesday, I usually talk about the parity. It's I on Monday I do the corners. On Tuesday I do the opposite edges. And yesterday I went further and did the side edges as well. So this is the parity. And there are algorithms that you have to learn for a parity, and you have to memorize them, and etc. No, you don't, because a parity is always caused by the same thing, and no matter what the parity looks like, it has the same solution. It's like when you're playing roulette, where the ball is bouncing around, and there's like 64 numbers or X number of numbers it can land in. There, it can land in red, or it can land in black, or it can whatever. I don't know how to play, but it's the same ball that's landing, and it doesn't matter what the outcome is. It's all caused by the ball spinning and landing in a space, and so these cubes rotate around their axes and do things, and then they'll either come up and their final state will either be solved correctly, or it will have it. If you have above a 3x3, the parity never shows on a 3x3, but it can show on a void cube. And the reason why it never shows on a 3x3 is because, surprise, surprise, back when we were first learning it, sometimes we didn't always work around the center because we hadn't standardized that. And so once we started solving around the center, parities never came in, because the center being off is what causes the parity. So the center being off is what causes the parity. So the formula B right here will always move 3 pieces. It will always move 3 pieces, and only the 3 pieces that you're working on. It doesn't move other pieces. So if you apply formula B to using the like here, if you apply formula B using the top row and the 2 outer columns, the cubes that are going to be moved are these 3, the 3 corners, because the columns, the cube dictates what happens. So if you apply formula B using these 2 columns, these 3 are going to move away. Specifically, this one is going to move here. And formula B, the columns are always, the first row is where you want a specific cubie to end up, and the second row is where the cubie begins. So for doing formula B on using this row and this column, it affects this cube going to there, and then everything else moves around to accommodate. So formula B, if you you can adapt which arrows the red and yellow arrows, the blue is always the top row, but the red and yellow arrows just simply represent the first column and the second column. And you notice that every other move is back and forth. And then it's a mathematical zero. It's a commutation. If where there's a red up, there's a red down. Where there's a yellow up, there's a yellow down. So again, this will move 3 pieces. If the columns that you use are the outside and an inner column, that's going to affect the edges, depending on, you pick a cube that's wrong that you want to move, like say this piece. And if you move it, if it's going to end up here. So this is the first column and this is the second column, because this is the piece we want to move there. And so if we do up, up, down, down, then these are the 3 cubes that we moved. Being 3 cubes and being a cube, if you do it 3 times, you would get back to where you started. But if you apply so outside edges, it works on corners, outside and inside works on edges. 2 insides for formula B works on the centers and leaves the corners and edges alone. Down, down, and it moved this piece and this piece and this piece. I do it again. This piece went there, this piece went here. These 3 pieces are the ones that are moving. So since formula B always moves 3 pieces, then for the cube to be honest to itself, follow the rules of the cube, there has to always be 3 pieces to switch. And when it looks like there's just 2 pieces, then that's a parity or an impossible situation. It's impossible to have on the 3 by 3, and so it's called a parity. But the cube is mathematically consistent. There's always going to be 3 pieces to move. Now we've been taught to consider the centerpiece as its own, just one piece, and that it's but it's not. If you have, so the center, if it looks like there's 2, I'm saying this very clumsily and I'm sorry. If it looks like there's 2, it's because the third piece is one you're not looking at. And the reason why you're not looking at is because you can't tell where the center piece is, because the center piece for a 4x4, or for this layer of the 4x4, it's not these 2. There's a centerpiece is off by a 1/4 turn. And when you do that, when you move that centerpiece, the center, if you realize, it looks solved because we did our centers. Oh no. But what happened is the centerpiece is a 1/4 turn off. And so if you rotate that slice by 1/4 turn, now you have one piece that's looking just at the edges. You have 1, 2, 3 pieces that are incorrect. You know how to place 3 pieces. You do that all the time. You just didn't know how to place 2 pieces. And so because the mathematics of the cube is consistent, there'll always be 3 pieces. If you only see 2, the third piece is the center, the framework of the layer that has the 2 parities, or one of the 2 parities. So 1/4 turn will undo that parity, as in 1/4 turn will undo this parity. So let's go ahead and keep placing. Okay, so what do? When we have the yellow and white are correct, we put the white down and we displace one yellow piece into wherever if we find a piece that's incorrect on the sides, not all of them are, but some of them will be, and we displace, this piece is incorrect, and so I'm going to displace a yellow piece down, and then I'm going to work with that will move this piece to the top where I can work on it. So I'm going to do that. So I do that by moving away, up, in. This is the second up because this is the piece I want to displace. Reverse down. Okay, now white is correct and it's going to stay correct, but we're looking at just the cube that's on top that doesn't have our top color, because that's the cube that we're going to place. Hold the row on top and rotate the entirety of the cube until the front color matches the corners of the cube. Okay. Then the top color is blue, so it's going to go above the blue. It's blue and red, so it's going to go above the blue and red, not the blue and red and green. So it's going over this direction. I don't care which, the cube knows which spot to place it in because of the inner workings of the cube and cube metric. So all we have to do is just, we don't have to pair it up. All we just have to do is just toss it in the direction that it wants to be. So away, up, in, up, away, down, in, down. And now this is the cube we're going to look at. Hold the top, rotate the cube so that the corners of the cube match the front color. Determine, don't decide, because the cube decides which direction it wants to move it. And so it's going in this direction, so away, up, in, up, away, down, in, down. This cube is placed. This is the cube we're going to work on now. And we keep doing this until our yellow that we tossed away finds its way back to the top, because there's nothing more to work on. And so when that happens, when the yellow comes back to the top, we look at the sides to see if they're correct. And if they are, you proceed to the next step. But if they're not, like, let's pretend that this one has a yellow, and let's pretend that this yellow worked its way back to the top. Okay, I'm not going to place either one of these two, but this one I can displace. So I'll move it over here and displace this one. And I keep working with, on the top, what's not our top color, until everything is placed. Now, when I'm doing this, the yellow is going to come to the top either as I'm just solving the cube, and I'm not, it's either going to come to the top correctly or it's going to come to the top of the parity, and the parity means that you're a quarter turn off, which we've already solved, so we won't get a parity this time. Green to red. Okay, my yellow came back to the top. I checked my sides, edges, and they are all correct. So that's done. Now you can tell that the centers need to be fixed, which is why I do the centers last when I'm solving a cube, because this type of parity, the parity where the parities are side by side, primarily, not all exclusively, but primarily happens because you paired up the cube and you're going to treat it like a 3x3 at the end. But you were treating it like a 3x3 by pretending that these two were one piece when they're not. So the other example over here, this is what the parity looked like, and it looks this way because the way I solved the cube, I forced the parities to come into the same row. Now, if I want to stay, if I'm teaching a beginner, I've been training them to look for the yellows and the whites. So I will displace the row. I'll put this row, one of these down. And then I'll say that's the row that's out of place, the one where it landed, which is true because it really doesn't matter which invisible center we move to set it. So, but let's 2 more times to get back to where I was. If you're a cubie rather than a newbie, what you can just hold it, make the turn the turn that works both of them, in which case again one is correct and these 3 are not. So we can then just displace. Okay, so now my top color is red. I'm looking at the sides. This piece is not correct, so I'm going to displace one of my reds into this spot. So whichever one it is, I don't have to pay attention to which one it is, but because I move it away, I go up, I move it back, and this is the one I'm displacing, so this is my second up. And then reverse, down, and reverse down. And then this is the cube I'm looking at. I rotate the whole cube until my front color matches the corners. It's blue and white, so it's going to go above the blue and white corner, not the blue and yellow corner, so it's going in this direction. I move it away, up, in, second up, away, down, in, second down. And now I'm looking at this cube as the one that doesn't have my top color. Front color matches the corners already, and so it's green. The 2 colors are green and white, so it goes above the green and white, so it goes to this side, away, up, in, up, away, down, in, down. Now I'm looking at this cube. Hold the top, rotate the cube till the front color matches the corners, and then go in the direction. Determine which direction it wants to go, and start by moving it away. That's your first up, in, second up, away, down, back, down. Now my color came back to the top, so I look to see whether the edges are placed, and it does. So now my corners and edges are correct. So that's what happens. That's how a parity works. And if you're working from the inside out rather than from the outside in, then when you're working on that parity that always comes on edges, if you solve for the edges, you're forcing that parity out into the corners. And so then what you'll end up with will look something, let me do it will look something like, okay, I only have 2 pieces that need to swap. But your brain doesn't fix it, doesn't hold on that thought, because you know that you have, it's still pliable in your head. So you can like, oh, well, okay, I can either have 2 in place, or I can have, no, okay, now I have 3, I know how to solve 3. And then you can just do solve those 3. The problem with getting a quarter parity on a larger cube is you're invested in the edge pieces being correct. And so you don't want to break apart the ones that are together. I don't pair up the edge pieces first, so the cube sorts itself out. The last edge pairing sorts itself out and puts itself together in the correct way rather than in the incorrect way. So yeah, that's it. That's what a parity is. A parity is always caused by one of your layers being a quarter turn off. And if you do your centers last in your solve, then you're not invested in making that quarter turn, and it's easier to make. See, now I have to fix, because I did the centers first here, now I have to fix my centers. Which, if I hadn't already placed the centers, would not be a big deal. So the ABCube method works from the outside in, which is the exact counterintuitive to how we've all been taught. But how we've all been taught is influenced by the fact that we were taught with first a 3x3. Which incidentally, when Mr. Rubik created his 3D cube, he was not trying to make a puzzle. He was just trying to demonstrate, if I have the story correct, he was trying to demonstrate how the atom moves around, how the parts of the atom move around in 3 dimensions. And what he invented was the method of holding the pieces of the cube together so they don't fall apart. Now, if you look at the history of Rubik's type puzzles, meaning puzzles that are cubical, 6-sided, multicolored, and the goal is to twist them and make the colors match on each side, if you look at that, then the 4x4 had already been invented 5 years ago. It was held together by magnets. So you would twist the cube, the magnetic cube, and if you could not solve it, you would take it apart and put it back together again correctly, which is what we did with the 3x3 as well, way back in the day. So the first Rubik's type puzzle was invented by, and I have the name right here because I always forget it. It starts with an S. I have so many early copies of my book before I published it online. Okay, haha, here we go. Handwritten before I put it into the computer. As far as I can tell, the first Rubik's type puzzle was patented by Larry D. Nichols in 1970, U.S. patent number 3655201A. The 8 cubes were held together by magnets and could be twisted around 3 axes to scramble or solve the cube. 6-colored cube, 6-sided 6-colored cube, or it could be pulled apart and reassembled. And then Erno patented the 3x3 in 1975. So it was indeed 5 years before the Rubik's Cube was patented that the puzzle had already been patented. So, which is why we were able to, back in the 80s, we were able to break his patent and get other cubes out on the market, was because once he had demonstrated that it could be held together, and because you cannot trademark or patent or copyright an idea, all you can do is trademark, copyright, or patent the tangible representation of how that idea is created. So, for example, you can't copyright a list of people's names like the phone book, but you can copyright. You can copyright the recipe, but if I change 2 lines around it, I've broken your copyright. So, so you can't copyright an idea, you can't trademark an idea, you can only trademark the way of hold it together. So we came up with other ways of holding the 3x3 together, and we're able to infringe on Mr. Rubik's patent, because we were doing, it was the same idea, but you can't trademark an idea. You can only trademark the way of doing that idea. So that's why, wait a minute, hold on. So I don't have it here right now, but sometimes I show my unboxed Rubik's Cube from the 80s, from 1981. And it says, the original Rubik's Cube. And the reason why it says it's the original is because the trademark the patent had been broken, and they were claiming brand loyalty. We're the original. We're the ones. Come buy our cube. But you don't write the original on something when it's a first run, because you don't know you're going to be copied. So the very fact that it says the original means it was done by the same company that created the original, but not that it was not that it's a first run. So, all right. Anybody want to talk to me today? Let's see. Let me do a refresh on my viewer list. See who's here. Ooh, lots of people. Hello. Hello, everybody. Hi, cubies and newbies. So today I talked about parities and how it's a misnomer. A parity just means that there's a center that's off, and you rotate the center 1/4 turn, and your parity disappears, which is not the fastest way to get rid of a parity, but it's easier for me to not have to. I mean, I memorized the parity algorithm, and I used it only when I had a parity. But since a parity can show up in lots of different ways, there's different parity algorithms to memorize. Communicating with Mr. Jeffrey Verasano, who's the first Rubik's Cube holder, we were talking about his method, and speaking of parities, the story that he told me was that because he was the world record holder for the 3x3 when they had the toy convention that launched Mattel, that launched the 4x4, they of course invited him to the conference, and they gave him a cube to play with while he was there at the conference. And so he was playing with the 4x4 far enough to realize that, oh, there's something that happens on the 4x4 that can't happen on the 3x3. I need to figure this out. And they said, okay, conference is over. The con is over. Here, leave us our cube back. It's time for you to go home. Now, for me, I would have an unsolved puzzle in my head until I could get my hands on a 3x3 again. But no, he went home, and with graph paper and colored pencils, he sketched out what the parity is and how to solve the parity. And his parity solve is actually just 10 moves, which surprised the people at the toy company, because he was, they were saying, yeah, and it takes this many moves to solve the parity. He's going, no, it doesn't. It takes 10. And he's going, no. And so he said, give me the cube. And he's driving so he couldn't, the other guy was driving so he couldn't watch. And so Jeffrey does is, he counts the turns, because you could count the turns at the time. I mean, they made sound. Turn, so you can't, it's like, there's 10 moves, and there's the parity. And he was going, oh, okay. So hats off to Jeffrey Verasano. He's and he has an amazing mind. And I think I have a crush on him. Okay, so any questions about parity or anything else about my ABCube method? And by the way, for those of you I've sent to abcube.how, I apologize. I mean, that was my first attempt at putting everything down. I have someone helping me now, I'm recreating the website, because the thing is that I didn't know how to put my steps down, so I did them as blogs. And the thing is that you can't blogs are ordered by chronologically by the last time you edited it. And so I can't just you have to look. That's why you click on solve it, click on corners, look at the corner things, and look for goal 1 in the corners. It's really sloppy. It's really, really messy. But so I'm going to recreate it as, I believe, a gallery, so that those can be sorted by name and then I can just name them as I want them to appear in steps, rather than it's just looks really sloppy now, and I'm sorry, I apologize. So that's on my to-do list, is to do that. But it is my dream to have it published in a book, because that still happens. And I want to be able to say that, I wrote the book. A little pride there. But I want the book to be sold with the beginner set, the training set, the 2, 3, 4, and 5. So you'd buy a training set of cubes, and you'd buy the book with it, or they would come together as a set. Because it doesn't, if you don't have a cube, it's hard. You can't learn if you don't have a cube in your hand. It's not one of those philosophical things. So, all right, that's a parity, and that's how to unsolve a parity is 1/4 turn. Not solve, undo a parity with 1/4 turn. All right, does anybody want to talk to me before I send you all out to have a great day? All right, well, thank you all for being part of my morning. Thank you for joining me on my stream. It's happy to this is fun for me. I'm old, but my kids said this is the way to start to communicate with my passion with the people out who share my passion out on the internet world. So that's what I'm doing. All right, nobody's talking, so I'm going to wish you all a great day, happy day, and I will be back here tomorrow, and I will be working on edges or whatever suits my fancy. So bye guys, see you tomorrow.